Hey there. So you've probably heard some marketer at some point telling you that you need to build a brand and that building a brand is very important. And marketing is all about building a brand, blah, 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 brand, brand, brand. But the problem with that is no one ever tells you how to build a brand or what does it really take to build a brand, particularly in B2B, where it's very different from direct to consumer business model. So today in this video, I'm gonna try and break down what a brand is, what it takes to build a brand, and some actual practical steps that you can take to build a brand. So I'm gonna start with first of all trying to explain what a brand really is, right? So the way I think about by the way, there is no real set definition for brands or even marketing for that matter, but I'm gonna take a stab at it. And the way I think about it is a brand is a is a measure of how many people in your target market who are not yet in a buying cycle are aware of your product or service and have some level of affinity to it. Uh, Ideally, a positive one, but it could be a negative one as well. So, again, people who are in your target market, but not currently in a buying cycle or in market to buy your product, yet aware of your product or service. The measure of that is what you call a brand in B2B. So what are the components of building a brand? What does it take to achieve that state where people out of market actually know about you? Well, it's rather simple. Components of a brand are reach, frequency, association, and recall. You can sort of bundle the last two together, but for the purpose of this video, I will talk about them all separately. So reach is simple, right? You need to reach your audience with your message, or with your, in B2B, it's mostly your message, your communications, but in B2C, it's also um, availability in terms of the product being physically there. But for the sake of B2B, we're just going to talk about the communication side of things. So you need, or your message needs to reach your audience or your target audience, right? And then the second part is frequency. So just reaching them is not enough. If you reach them once, there's so much noise out in the market. There's no point. Your reach has to repeat itself again and again. Now there's a lot of data on how much frequency or how much repetition do you need for your message to really sort of um, have a print in your buyer's mind. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to probably a later video. But yeah, frequency. So first you have to reach, and then you have to be frequent in your reach. You have to reach again and again. And then association. Now, association is when you're reaching your audience and you're reaching them again and again, what are you reaching them with? Because every time you give them a message, every time you reach out to them, you're invoking a thought, a feeling, um, some kind of a trigger happening inside the customer. And as brand marketers or as marketers, even founders, you need to be careful about what that is that you're invoking. Is that a feeling of joy? Is that a feeling of anxiety? Is that a feeling of fear? Is that a feeling of trust? Is that a feeling of confidence? I don't know, right? So association is that. What is the feeling that you're trying to invoke through your message? And then recall. And that's why I said in the start, association and recall are sort of intertwined. Because if you associate with them in the right way, you want to make sure that, well, they recall your brand, they think about your brand. The whole point of this exercise is to think about your brand when it's time to buy, right? So you want to make sure you're building associations that help with the recall, or as they're called in marketing, category entry points. You want to be making associations with category entry points, right? So these are the basic components of a brand. If you look at them, it's rather straightforward. You have to reach them. You have to reach them consistently. You have to reach them with the right message. And you have to make sure that the message that you're reaching them with is memorable so that they can recall your brand when it's time. So let's say you've got, oh God, what is this? I don't know. I thought I had formatted it pretty nicely, but anyhow, record loom. Sorry, guys. Hang on a sec. Let me just bloody remove this part. Okay, so let's talk about the steps of building a brand, right? How do you actually go about building a brand? When you execute all those components, how does it look? Well, if first of all we're going to talk about organic, and then we're going to talk about paid, right? Because I'm trying to address B2B startups here, and for startups, generally the first thing, they can't start with paid, so they need to be organic. And again, the whole point, again, why I'm telling you this is because I see a lot of startup founders falling into the trap of going bottom of funnel, running conversion ads, getting performance marketing, doing growth marketing per se. Well, I think that's a stupid move, right? Because unless you're in a blue ocean from a category standpoint, generally these channels are so saturated and the cost of acquisition is so high that if you're bootstrapping, it almost just doesn't make sense to be going after that bottom 3% from a marketing standpoint early on. If you're doing founder sales, if there's not a lot of money cost to it, yeah, sure, go for it. But yeah, in terms of spending your marketing dollars at the start, it yeah, I would say start focusing on building a brand from the get go, because it would pay dividends in the long run. Anyhow, I digress. So, from an execution standpoint, if you're looking to build a brand organically, there are three things that I recommend. First of all, I recommend commenting. Comment a lot on your target audience's posts. First of all, identify the channel. If you're B2B, most likely your audience is on LinkedIn. Identify your potential customers, identify your potential partners and peers and competition, right? And go and leave comments. I think commenting is very, very underrated. People say post, 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 but I think commenting gives you a bigger leverage if you're smart on how you go about commenting, right? Because you can comment under people's posts who've already built some kind of reputation, some kind of audience, and when you go in and comment, you give yourself additional visibility into their networks as well, right? And then it's also a chance to make a connection with those people. I think it blends into the second point of networking, right? Let's say if I'm selling to marketers, I want to get attention of marketers. If I go out and post thoughtful and really nice thought provoking comments under the posts of marketing leaders who are being followed by all marketers in the industry, let's say Seth Godin, let's say Gary Vee, right? Let's say Chris Walker on LinkedIn, my comment is going to get a lot of reach. And then if if I play my cards right, it's my chance to connect with them and their audience, right? And build sort of associations in the mind of my audience that I want. So be very smart with commenting. And while the commenting can be used as networking, there are also other ways of doing networking, obviously. um, be in the right circles, so that you're seen with the right people, so that you build the right associations for the people seeing you or your product or your business. When you're as good as the people you hang out with, pretty much, right? What is it, like the sum of or the average of three people you hang out with? Well, it's a similar effect that has an effect on your brand as well. The people you're seen with affects the credibility and the associations that you build. And then posting is the last stuff, really. Once you nail down the first two things, then you should post frequently with your own thoughts, and with your own ideas, with your own analysis, whatever, so that you can scale your reach, or you can reach. So in terms of the components of brand, if we look at these things again from that lens, commenting, it it's commenting and networking are part of building associations, right? Whereas posting gives you control over reach and frequency. But on social media, it's kind of confusing because for your posting to have reach, you first need to do commenting and networking. So on social media, particularly on LinkedIn, it just doesn't start from reach. It rather starts from association and frequency, if that makes sense, right? So you start from there, and then once you have some certain level of engagement, once you have certain level of connections within the industry, then you can post, and then those posts will get engagement, which will result in reach and frequency. I'm talking very particularly from a LinkedIn standpoint. You can obviously see how this relates to other stuff as well, right? um, but if you're trying to build a brand organically, that's how I would go about it. Obviously other ways of that would be probably, posting informational. If you're not talking about LinkedIn as a channel, you could be posting informational content on SEO. For SEO, you could be hosting events, you could be speaking at events. There's a plethora of things that you could be doing. But from a startup's perspective, uh, from a B2B founder's perspective, I think this is the place where you need to start, and this is where you start building your brand. Now, let's talk about paid side of things. If you're doing paid marketing, or trying to build a brand from a paid perspective, well, there's a simple way to do it. Um, People think when you do brand marketing, you don't talk about product. You don't talk about your services. No, that's not right. It's just you have to talk about it in the right ways, and give it the right amount of time, because you have to remember that at the end of the day, you're not addressing in market buyers, you're addressing out of market buyers. But because reach is not very targeted all the time, you do have people who are not who are in market get that message as well, and that could result in some level of sales activity as well. But again, I digress. So if you're doing paid marketing, you should have clear communication about what your product does and what problems it solves, and these should be running on a low budget all the time. So at least, and your target market should be receiving this communication all the time. So a simple way to do, let's say you have a $50 per day ad budget on, let's be platform agnostic right now. You have a $50 ad budget, you dial in your target audience, you put a couple of ads on what your product does and how it helps, what it helps achieve. And you want those ads to just keep running in the background, not with the lead objective, rather a awareness objective. I wouldn't even recommend traffic objective, because then uh, these platforms are incentivized to show your ads to bots, and then bots clicks because the objective is traffic, and you're measuring the performance on clicks. You get a lot of fake clicks. However, if it's awareness, impressions are generally better, uh, because again, it's not just a better, it's also cheaper. And my understanding is that there's less impression in frauds, there's more impression there's less fraud in impressions and more fraud in clicks. So you always want to be running product or service explainers to your TAM. And the other way to do it is information distribution. So, and probably ungated if you're trying to build a brand, because you're not trying to get leads here, you're trying to just stay top of mind of out of market buyers. And for that, what you want to do is you want to build really helpful pieces of content, or content that has already worked on social media, and boost that with paid media and run it as an ad, so that the whole industry is where one way to do it on LinkedIn particularly is thought leaders ad. If a post takes off, and it resonated with your target market because you can see likes and comments from them, you should take that post, run it as a thought leader ad, and make sure that all of your target market is seeing that. And these should be running in the background always, because you, again, remember, you want to build associations, reach and frequency. Even if they're not converting immediately, you want to have them always on in the background. Any performance campaigns should be on top of that, right? $20 a day, $50 a day, whatever you can do, you should start that from the very start so that you can start building a brand from day one, not when you already are at 2 million, 5 million, 6 million, because you don't need to be big to build a brand. You just need to know what a brand is and what you're trying to do. So I hope this helps. I know I rambled a little bit. I'm still pretty new to videos. If you have any feedback and suggestion, anything else you want to hear my thoughts on, anything you want advice or help on, or anything particular you want me to create content on, please let me know. And yeah, I hope this helps all of you. Cheers.